There are several different words for God or the gods in various Indo-European languages. Some of these are cognate with others, some are unique developments within their own cultures. We'll take a look at some of these words and their origin, and from them learn a bit about what the ancients thought about the nature of God. Hi friends, I'm Kevin McLean. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and consider supporting the channel through Patreon or PayPal. A big thanks to all of my supporters. Now, since this video is in English, it would be sensible to start with the word which I'm primarily using, God. Now, God is of a Proto-Germanic origin, gudan, and despite what you may have heard, doesn't come from good. This comes from a Proto-Indo-European word meaning to call on or to invoke, and is cognate with Gaelic gu, meaning voice. So in origin, the word God means something like the one who is called upon or invoked. Now some have argued for a link between this word God and Woden or Odin. The Lombardic form of the name Woden was Godan, similar to the Gudan proposed as the origin for God. And so the argument goes that during conversion, this name for Woden was shortened to God, but I think the argument is relatively shaky, as interesting as it would be for that to be true. More logically, it developed out of the continued ritual practice of pouring libations to the gods and invoking them through this ritual, so the practice itself came to denote a deity. Other words used in modern English to denote God, such as divinity, deity, spirit, all of these are of a Latin origin. In Norse, there are a few different words for God. Regn, from the famous ragnarok. In Proto-Germanic, it seems to have meant advice or counsel, so it's possible that it developed to mean God, in the sense that they provide counsel or advice. In Old English, regn means very, or wondrous, or solemn, but regnian means to prepare, arrange, order. But we see with regn is that there may be an association here with not only advice or counsel, but as the Old English suggests, with ordering and arranging, so that the gods are those who order. And we will see a similar usage with different words in other languages. In Old Norse, the word as is used to mean God, and in plural is Asir, which is a very common name for the branch of deities associated with Odin and Thor. In Old English, this is Os. Now this word is theorized to come from Proto-Germanic ansus and Indo-European hensus, meaning life force, and cognate with Sanskrit asu, also meaning life force, and asura, a title used in the Rig Veda to refer to the powerful gods like Varuna, Indra, and Agni, but it later takes on a negative connotation. Varuna is sometimes referred to simply as the asura, and perhaps directly cognate with Odin being called simply As. Perhaps one could throw in a joke here at Odin's expense, but I digress. This is also cognate with the old Persian language of the Avestan, Anhu, meaning lifetime, and Ahura, meaning God or Lord, as in Ahura Mazda, the God or Lord of wisdom, the supreme deity of the Zoroastrian religion, and it's theorized that Ahura Mazda originated as Varuna. Indeed, we see in Norse, Celtic, and Persian that the highest ideal of divinity is a god associated with vast knowledge as his primary attribute. Now this as, or os, or hensus refers to the life force itself, thus referring to God as that which gives life. Odin is shown to give the breath of life to mortals, and is closely connected with human consciousness. Tyr in Old Norse and Tiw in Old English, the name of a specific god, but it was also used as a noun to mean any god. This is because it is derived from the Proto-Indo-European word dēwos, referring to the god as the celestial one, cognate with Latin deus, but Tyr is perhaps a title derived from it, and the functions of Tyr, or Tiw, are not equivalent to, say, Zeus. So this etymological link doesn't mean Tyr was originally the Sky Father deity, simply that his title is related in some way to it. In Old Gaelic, the word used for God, both pagan gods and the Christian god, is dia or dia. The word is also used to mean day, but it may have a separate, more closely connected etymology from Proto-Celtic dēwos, cognate with Sanskrit deva, Latin deus, all referring to God of the bright sky, Proto-Indo-European dēwos. The underworld gods of Gaelic myth are identified as Anje, meaning ungod, but also meaning the unbright ones, in other words, the dark gods. And in Latin, as has been said, the word for God is deus, with cognates in Celtic, Germanic, Indo-Iranian, and so forth. In Old Persian, this form takes on a negative connotation. And the dēwa of the Avestan are demons, a mirror of what happens in the Indian case, where Asura becomes the name for demons. Perhaps this is a mythological development, but there may have been a real-world political element for this mirrored shift. In Slavic, bog became the main word denoting a god, coming through perhaps Indo-Iranian influence. It means something like wealth giver, and ultimately comes from Indo-European bug, to distribute or divide, so the distributing one, giving another insight into why a chief god might be interpreted as Mercury, one who distributes wealth. The word is incorporated into some of the names for the Slavic gods, such as Dazbog, and it isn't such a strange thing to refer to a god as a distributor, because if we think of the English word lord, it originates from hlaf, meaning bread, and werd, meaning guardian. So the bread guardian is what lord actually means, which is not so dissimilar from bog. Baghdad, the capital of Iraq, is from Middle Persian baga data, meaning Lord given. Now, of course, any language that developed out of Latin, such as French, Italian, Spanish, all of these languages are going to have the same root for God as we dealt with in the Latin, deus. But there does remain the Greek. So the word for God in Greek is theos. Remarkably, this is not actually cognate with Latin deus, although it sounds very similar, but it comes from Proto-Indo-European deus, to put in place. So God or the gods are the ones who arrange or set things up, the one who orders. And so we can see how this word for God, regn, in Germanic corresponds conceptually with dēwos in Greek. Now this is cognate with the Phrygian dēwos, Old Armenian dik, but Greek does have a word that is cognate with Latin dēwos, and that is Zeus, king of the gods. There are many regional ways of pronouncing Zeus in ancient Greek. The Boeotian form is dēwos, Laconian is Zas, Ionic, Theos, or Seos, but they all come from Mycenaean Greek, dēwos, from Proto-Indo-European, dēwos, meaning sky, heaven, or God, from dēw, meaning bright, referring to the bright sky. So from all that, we see that to many of the people descended from or linguistically connected to the Indo-Europeans, one of the highest concepts of divinity was associated with light and sky. However, it was not the only cognate concept. It was also believed that the gods apportioned things to men, were connected to or bestowed life, and that they created order. It may also have been the case that words dēwos did have a conception as the supreme deity, through which all the other gods gained their power. Thus we have the concept of Zeus and Jupiter being the father of the gods, with Jupiter originating from Ius Pater, meaning the bright sky father. So we have a unified concept in general of the nature of the gods, but there is also a relatively unified concept of the idea of the non-gods, or what we might think of as demons. Vedic, Persian, Celtic, Germanic, Greek, all possess to one degree or another a adversarial force that battles against the gods, given that one of the highest conceptions of divinity in the Proto-Indo-European world is related to the bright sky, and thus light. These oppositional figures are in origin, and sometimes still in mythology, linked to darkness. Not only to physical darkness, but mental darkness, things that are unconscious. And these beings are often linked to destruction, chaos, and death, and they oppose the gods who try to bring order and life and bestow good things to man. So that the main gods are directly related to social functions in many cases. All of these individual traditions work out the details differently, but they all share similar conceptions regarding the nature and role of the gods. And this conception seems to have originated at least as early as the language of Proto-Indo-European. Anyhow, I hope you liked the video, and if you did, please remember to like, subscribe, and consider supporting the channel through Patreon or PayPal. And as always, stand tall.